Hi, I'm Loyal Subject, and this is Daily Polemics. The topic today is the definition of woke. Just a little bit of background before I dive right into it. Right off the top, I recognize that there was some trouble with the idea that woke is really almost just a right-wing slur against left-wing movements, and I don't really think that's good enough. If they only defining characteristic of woke is that it's left-wing, that's not going to be good enough. So I thought, okay, get ambitious. I'm going to make a definition of woke that is completely non-partisan. I'm sure somebody could argue and find some partisanship in it, but I can't. And I'm going to make it compact. Compact enough that if somebody is stumped for a definition, they got words to start with. So here we go. Let's get right into it. Here's my compact definition of woke, and I'll give a few words afterwards as well. I'm going to read it aloud for people that can't read off this tiny screen. Woke is an ironic reference to socio-political movements whose proponents affect a posture of moral and intellectual authority, even while freely employing deception and coercion to compel the assent of people who would otherwise reject their radical beliefs and demands. Publicly, these movements justify their claims to authority by reference to the oppressed groups they purport to champion, and by reference to their own radical beliefs. In other words, they justify what they're doing by referencing the poor victims that they are championing. In addition to demanding practical corrections for harms they define, woke movements demand adoption of their beliefs across society, working to have them taught in schools and embedded within laws and institutions at all levels. Woke individuals regard changing the world as their personal and unifying missions. Now let's just pick that apart a little bit more. Woke is an ironic reference, actually a sarcastic reference, to the people in that movement because they act like they want authority. And they have it, and they deserve it, and you shouldn't question it. So it's a sarcastic reference. And it's ironic that a socio-political movement that's feigning moral and intellectual authority actually needs to use these kinds of tactics to get people to go along with them. And there's really nothing wrong with championing the underdog. But that isn't always what's going on, as you sometimes discover when you scratch the surface a little bit. So some of the practical demands that they make are kind of odd, worth calling them radical, I think, but their beliefs are even odder, and I think they're very much worth calling radical. Even that is a mouthful. It can be a mouthful. Now, if you want to be more sarcastic, there's an even shorter description available. And it's so much shorter that we can increase its font size considerably. One wouldn't call this as polite a description, but it's apt. Woke ironically names that pack of cultish zealots who will do anything to make you pretend to agree with their whack social theories and obey their stupid demands. They'd be a joke if their sneaky, manipulative techniques weren't so good at fooling children, cowards, and simpletons into believing they have cosmic truth on their side and are therefore both entitled to and capable of driving change with their mobs, memes, and makeup. I should have added colored hair, but the alliteration demanded an M. Use whichever one you want. They both work. However, the next feature kind of depends on the first one. I've provided a wokeness checklist. So, reading off the screen again, the more of these hold true, the more likely woke fits a particular movement or person. 1. Pretensions of moral and intellectual authority. If you're feeling lectured to and told what you need to know and need to understand, then that pretty much covers that. Use of deception and coercion to compel assent. If you've been told that you don't want to be a racist, then you have to go along with them. Purported championing of oppressed groups. Well, they're always going to claim that. Sometimes it'll be true. So you got to watch for that. But it's definitely part of the shtick, the woke shtick, is to wrap themselves in the purity of championing the underdog. 4. Demanding that their radical beliefs be taught in school and embedded within all the institutions of society. If you dig far enough, not very far, you'll discover that that's actually what they're up to. And then changing the world is seen as the ultimate mission. So, basically, if you could score all 5 of those and confidently, not like, yeah, maybe, then pretty much sure that that's a woke movement. So what do we need now? We need some practice cases. Now, I've presented this so that you could copy it and play it as a party game with your friends and so forth. There's a few challenging ones in there, I hope. I'm not sure I should even go through one now as an example. What's next? Just a couple of terms that woke displaces. In other words, this word basically has replaced these other words. Woke has displaced these other words in common usage. Social justice warrior. That was itself a sarcastic reference to people that claim to be interested in social justice. The addition of warrior, well, I'll speak on that in a second. Social justice warrior is a very closely related term, since movements that could fall under the banner of social justice are frequently identical with those a critic might just as easily refer to as woke. The inclusion of warrior adds a sense of religious zeal that is so characteristic of wokeness. Perhaps solely due to its greater ease to employ as an utterance, woke has all but replaced social justice warrior. It's worth noting that woke doesn't necessarily exclude movements that aren't easily described as being about social justice. In other words, it would be possible to have an organization, a movement that would fall under the definition of woke as I've laid it out, that maybe isn't about social justice. Some of those examples back there might be fun. Now, that second paragraph, perhaps solely due to its greater ease to employ as an utterance, woke is really easy to say. Woke has all but replaced social justice warrior. Now try doing this with anything but woke, with social justice warrior specifically. Their wokeness was high. They're up to some wokery there. Bunch of wokesters they are. They're kind of wokish. Maybe that's somebody who only scored 4 on the definitions checklist. That's being woke washed. You're such a Wokenheimer. Oh, aren't you just the wokey McWoke face? Not so easy to do with social justice warrior, is it? And what's next? Politically correct. Remember that? Well, very similar in usage and meaning to politically correct, woke expresses an intuition that politically correct does not. This intuition is that woke movements seem much more like religious cults than like groups of people who may only be cynically complying with, paying lip service to, currently requisite ideas, currently required ideas. The term woke invokes this religious sense through its association with ideas about spiritual awakening, or at least awakening to see the world more truly, as if one's life thus far had been merely a dream, perhaps in a pod whilst covered in goo. I think that's probably all that needs to be said about woke, the short definition, which I hope is suitably compact for everyone, and I didn't once mention left, right, Republican, conservative, liberal, or anything like that. Feeling quite happy about that. Thank you for watching.